And also he kind of delayed the updating. Okay, again it's dysfunctional decision making. Again it just delayed the payment to the suppliers as well. And as you can see means he is actually doing the new investment as well as he is paying the suppliers in time as well, and he seems to be delaying. Again it's a dysfunctional decision making because he's actually compromising his relationship with the suppliers, definitely at the state, at the reputation of the company. So he is actually, an ROI is actually showing a distorted picture of its regarding its performance. It's not actually showing its real performance. But if you have a look at this guy here, he actually worked in the best interest of the company. So definitely ROI is not a fair measure, and it actually leads to the problems we are facing here, that this guy is actually delaying the updating, not paying the supplier. So definitely, so that's what you need to discuss in this part here, and it will earn you good 7 marks. Means how much time you have. First of all, it's a discuss requirement. You need to write at least how much you need to write. You need to see how the action verb and how much time actually you have. Mean how much paragraphs, how much point you could come up with. Like you have good 10.5 minutes for that. Yeah, so just come up why it's not fair, talk about the bonus. Yeah, yeah, and then what problems it's arising, bonus and the problem. So actually two things you need to address. It's a multi-part requirement, whether ROI provides a fair base. Yeah, and then maybe provides a fair base or not, discuss about what has caused less bonus for one party and more bonus for the other, and then problems that are arising, that is taking dysfunctional decision making, not replacing this, and then delaying payment at the state, at the company's reputation. Yeah. So, and this will earn you 7 marks. Briefly discuss the strength and weakness of ROI and RI as method of assessing the performance of divisions. Yeah. And explain two further methods of assessment of divisional performance that could be used in addition to ROI or RI. What it is used basically to assess ROI and RI. ROI is actually being used to assess the divisional performance. Yeah, but it doesn't it helps, it promotes dysfunctional decision making, and the manager won't accept new investment. That you need to explain, briefly discuss. Okay, so that the it doesn't have correlation with shareholder value. So all the disadvantages and disadvantages, just like I told you, briefly discuss. Yeah, and what are for RI, it has good correlation. Yeah, it has good correlation because it deduct the notional interest on capital employed. It avoid dysfunctional decision making because the managers are more aware of the cost of their assets that belongs to their entity. And it RI is correlation, and the third one, since it's an absolute measure, so it is more closer. It avoids dysfunctional decision making, and it would encourage them to take new decision. Just like, maybe you could explain, just like if the manager performance was based upon RI instead of ROI, you would know for sure that it is divisional and manager would whose RI would be more, because he RI would be more, because that would just add on to the residual income of the center. Yeah, and based on RI, he if based on RI, he actually did the dysfunctional decision making, not paying the payables and replacing the assessment. If it had been on RI, definitely he wouldn't have taken those dysfunctional decision making. Okay, which was not in the best interest of the company. And third part to this requirement. First, briefly discuss the weaknesses and strength and weaknesses of both ROI and RI. And second, weaknesses of both ROI and RI. And secondly, explain two further methods of assessment of division. One could be balance scorecard. Yeah. And the other one, yeah, could be, there's a concept known as economic value added. It's just kind of ROI, but here you get you actually you will get to know about this concept in APM. Yeah, here you convert take the economic value of the profit divided by economic value of the investment. So it is just kind of out of your control, but this could be one further good method while assessing the divisional performance. Yeah, apart from ROI and RI. So that will earn you 5 marks. It's not a very good, not a lot of description for both of these points is required, just a 5 marker. Had it been a 7 marker, a great description would have been required. So how much you need to write action verb, how many parts of the requirement, how many action verb are, yeah, at times it's a two action verb, two objects, how many objects are, and what are the marks available, and how many paragraphs you should come. There should be clear structure. At times, if you need to give heading, you can give heading. Otherwise, just short paragraphs. Okay, short paragraph, not one lengthy paragraph. It should have clear structure to your answer. Okay, now what is transfer pricing? I told you when divisions are actually doing trading within themselves. For example, there's division A selling batteries to division E. So when A is selling to B, at what price they're transferring, seller is transferring to the buyer, or which would actually be revenue per unit for the seller and cost per unit to the buyer. And I was telling you, definitely they are profit accountable. So A would want to sell it at a high price, and B would want it to sell it to get it at a lesser price, definitely just to increase their profits. So in order to, and also at times head office just imposes a manager not to buy from outside, a buyer not to buy from outside, even if he could buy at lesser price than being charged, being transferred internally. And at times a seller may want to sell outside, but head office just impose, and they just compromises their divisional autonomy, that they should just trade within themselves. Yeah, so in order to ensure that divisional autonomy, that their autonomy isn't compromised, so the best price in which the benefit is actually being shared, and it's in the best interest of the company. So there are certain rules that so transfer pricing rules is actually are there not to compromise that autonomy, and then both the buyer and the seller are actually happy, and they work in the best interest of the company. It also ensures fair performance based upon the profits. So one want to sell at a high price and the other want to sell at a less price. So and both are profit accountable. So definitely the transfer price is going to impact the profits of both the divisions. So transfer price should be such that it actually shares the benefit between the divisions. Yeah, and it's so such a transfer price that could not Compromised divisional autonomy ensures fair performance measurement because it is a kind of a matrix. Transfer price is actually kind of a matrix that determines that who is good and how the performance of the manager of that divisional manager has been. Yeah, so definitely that transfer price is actually will ensure that the performance measurement is fair based upon a fair transfer price. So all those rules are there to ensure goal congruence so that they are just not working for their own interest and then they take a decision in the best interest of the company. For example, seller has a spare capacity that even after selling outside, but buyer just want to buy from outside. So it would be not, it won't ensure goal congruence. It would be in because there will be some spare capacity that seller could have utilized while selling internally. Yeah. It just takes the you will take the decision in the best interest of the company. Yeah, so it will ensure the managers are motivated as well. Manager will be motivated when it would be their price which would has increased their profits. And at times you report the revenues in a tax area. When you are working in a divisionalized structure where you're operating in multiple subsidiaries in multiple companies. Yeah, and you can take the incentive of tax benefit that reporting your income deliberately. Head office reports the income where they have lower corporate tax rates, right? Yeah, uh, yeah, even if the it doesn't belong to us, just to take the tax benefit. Yeah, so transfer price can also give you this benefit. So these are all the purpose of transfer pricing and the benefit of the transfer pricing. What it could be marginal cost plus profit, could be total cost plus profit, could be, yeah, full absorption cost plus profit. These are cost based transfer pricing. Then they are market based transfer pricing. Yeah, if I want to, I'm selling, A is selling to B, but then there's some external market. I could have sold externally as well. Yeah. So I would just do it as if I would just, even for example, if not selling outside, I'm selling inside. I would just do it. For example, at external market, I could sell it at 100. So I would just sell internally at 100 so that there's no contribution foregone. Yeah. For example, if I would sell internally at 80, definitely there's some opportunity cost of 20. I could have earned 20 more by selling outside. So an open market or arm's length is such an approach, a market-based approach again, that whether it's just like I'm making an external sale, but though I'm selling internally. And again, buyer may have some intermediary external market as well. So he could sell externally, but he would just buy from internally at the same price. He's getting the same material from external market. So this is kind of that none of them is at a disadvantage because A want to earn more. Why he would just transfer the material at marginal cost? Yeah, when for example marginal cost is 10 and buyer can get it at 17, so definitely he would want to charge more because at 10 is not getting any profit. So what would be the maximum a buyer can pay for that and he's not at a disadvantage? It could be at 17, and here the group profit could be maximized, and here B would think it was just an arm length transaction, whether I get it internally at 17 or whether I go outside, I would only get it for 17. So it's kind of an arm length transaction. So he's selling at 100, so I would just sell internally at 100. So just like that, there's an arm length transaction as if it you have actually sold outside and I got it from outside, but it's actually internal trading and on a fair price, and everybody's happy, just like that. At times there's some negotiated price. Yeah, this will do some negotiation so that the benefit, it's not neither too high that he gets the profit and he doesn't get much profit, or it's too low that he gets the entire benefit and doesn't get. So it's kind of a negotiated some way where the benefits is being shared. At times it could be dual pricing where both are happy. Yeah, both are happy. Dual pricing is, for example, one is reporting at a market price, the other one is reporting as if it got at a marginal cost. Yeah, he is happy because he has got maximum profit. He is happy because he's got the minimum cost. That is the concept of dual pricing. Yeah, because these are the intra trading, and intra trading are actually ruled out in the they actually just what you can say, they actually, this transfer pricing thing is actually at the consolidation stage. This intra-group transfer actually wiped out in the consolidation phase. But in this case, how it would be wiped out? For example, the market price would be at 100 and the marginal cost is at 50. How they would get to cancel it? But still, the accountants might have, or financial teacher can tell her how at the time of consolidation these will be consolidated. But this is a concept of dual pricing. It is good in a way because even seller would be happy, would enjoy the maximum profit, and even buyer would be happy and he would be enjoying maximum profit. What is basically a transfer price? What is basically a transfer price? Let me tell you. For example, this is transfer price and he will have its own cost, right? Let me take an example here. A sells to B and A's own cost is 20 and buyer's own, okay, A buy the thing and then he definitely do some value addition. Yeah, like got the batteries and definitely will incur some more cost and then he will sell externally at 100, right? So I'll just take this thing. Let me explain you what are group profits and what are individual profits here and how it actually works. So this is division A. Yeah, division A own cost is 20, right? And this is division B. Division B sells externally at 100, okay? And then he get the component transfer in cost, he get the same component at, for example, if he charges it the same cost at 20. So he will get the thing at 20 here, okay? And then he will incur his own cost of 45, yeah? Because this was just a battery, he got his own cost as well, and then he sold it externally in a market at 100. So this was the case. What if transfer price is set at 20? What's happening here in case of A? Does A get any profit? No. What about B? B gets a profit of 100 minus transfer cost of 20 minus 45, he gets a profit of 35. What about the group profit? What is a group profit? I told you this 20 and this 20 actually gets cancelled. Yeah. And what is a group profit? Anything which is happening internally, internal trading won't impact the group profit. Only external trading in either side would impact group profit. When A is selling externally, it would impact group profit. Internally, it won't have an impact. When B is doing external purchasing, only it will impact group profit. When it's doing internal purchasing, it won't impact group profits. So this 20 and this 20 won't impact the group profit. So how group profit is calculated? It's actually external sales minus cost incurred by seller minus cost incurred by the buyer. That's how you calculate the group profit. External selling price minus cost incurred by the seller minus cost incurred by the buyer. So what is the group profit in this case? External sale was 100. Cost incurred by the seller was 20, its own cost. And cost incurred by the buyer was 45. What is the group profit? 35. Means whatever profit B got, that same as the profit for the group. But here A didn't get any benefit. So I told you it should be fair management. So transfer price rule at 20 is not a good price, definitely, because B gets the whole benefit. What if I set transfer pricing at 15? What if transfer price is 55? What would happen now? Now transfer price is 55. Division A's own cost is 20. 55 minus 20. What is the scenario? It's 35. Now have a look at B. B, sell it externally at 100. Transfer price is 55 and he also incur its own cost of 45. What's the profit he's getting? 100 minus 55 minus 45. Oh my God, doesn't get anything. Means here the entire benefit has gone to the buyer and has gone to the seller and none to the buyer. So this is also not a good price. Actually, transfer price should be when there is no external market. I'm assuming A cannot sell externally and B cannot buy from outside. What should be the transfer price in this case where there is no external market or intermediary market? Means neither A could sell outside nor B could buy from outside. The ideal transfer price would be somewhere in between, not 20, not 55, because 20 is good for him, not for him. 55 is good for B, not for good for A, not for B. So not 20, not 25, but it should be in between 20 and 25. So minimum transfer price would be 20, maximum transfer price would be 55. But definitely you won't be happy with the minimum and you won't be happy with the maximum. So it should be negotiated price somewhere in between. So the benefit is shared. Yeah, so the benefit is shared. So minimum transfer price is always charged, is considered with respect to the seller, and maximum is always taken with respect to the buyer. In case you have no external market, A cannot sell externally, B cannot purchase from outside. So the ideal transfer price would be greater than 20 but less than 50. So it would be somewhere in between 20 and 55. Which is basically, what is 20 and 55? So minimum price would be equal to marginal cost and maximum price is basically equal to net marginal revenue of buyer. What is net marginal revenue? I'll shed some more light here. Net marginal revenue is revenue being earned by selling externally this component that B is selling. He is getting against 1 unit is getting a revenue of 100. But what is his own variable cost is 45. So that is the marginal revenue, because if here when I charge transfer price of 55, 100 minus 45 at 55, he doesn't get anything. So the maximum he would be, definitely he would want some negotiation at 55, he doesn't get anything. But minimum price seller would charge would be 20, not less than 20. Because at 20, if it's going to be less than 20, he won't be even covering its variable cost. So that's insane. Yeah. So minimum would be equal to marginal cost and maximum would be maximum with respect to buyer, and it would be equal to the net marginal revenue. Net marginal revenue is basically revenue minus the variable cost. So the net is basically would be 55. Yeah. In case we are moving on, that's the basic concept of transfer price. But at times there are intermediary markets as well. Yeah. So what would be sensible transfer price in those cases where group profits would be optimized? Yeah. So sensible transfer price in case seller has external market. Seller can sell externally at 30. You see that seller can sell externally at 30. So if he's selling, he would sell externally at 30 and 20 is its own cost. What is the 20 is the variable cost. What is the contribution is getting by selling externally is 10. Okay. When seller has an external market, there could be two conditions. One, if he has a spare capacity, and the other, if he is at a full capacity. What do I mean by? So seller capacity is important. While setting a transfer price, seller capacity is important in such a case where seller can sell externally, but buyer cannot purchase from outside market. That's the scenario. So what would be a sensible market price in spare capacity and without spare capacity? Means, for example, seller capacity is 20,000, right? 10,000 is external demand and 10,000 is internal demand. That is a case in which even after selling 10,000 in the external market, he still has spare capacity and he still is producing 10,000 more and can easily meet the demand, internal demand as well. I can easily sell to B. So in that case, what is he going to charge? Again, seller has no external market. Okay, so I cannot, I don't know what is that, what buyer could get from outside market. Otherwise, I would have taken that thing into account. But again, the same rule applies. The minimum in this case would be marginal cost. Because here for these 10,000 units, there is no contribution foregone. Because the external demand is only 10,000 and he still have 10,000 more and he can, without any contribution foregone, without any opportunity cost, he can still meet the internal demand. So in that case, the minimum is charged with respect to the seller, and the minimum in that case would be marginal cost, because here the opportunity cost, there's no contribution foregone, opportunity cost is 0 in this case. So minimum is happy with 20, but maximum is set with respect to the buyer, and he would only want it at no less than, he would want it at less than 55. Okay, so transfer price again would be somewhere in between 20 to 55 in case there is a spare capacity. But in case I say that I'm producing 20,000 and 15,000 is my external demand now. Now my external demand is 15,000. So I'm producing only 20,000, means I'm short of capacity. Here I'm working at a full capacity. So I can only, for 5,000 I have spare capacity, but for other 5,000 I am working at a full capacity. At 5,000 I can give you minimum at 20 and maximum at 55. But for these 5,000 I will have to divert from external to internal in order to meet your needs of 10,000 units. Because 15,000 I could sell externally. So in that case, I could get every unit of 30, I could get a contribution of 10. If I'm going to divert the demand, definitely there'll be some contribution foregone. So the minimum price, in case there's a full capacity, I would charge you, and then I can shift the demand from external to internal. I would give you 1 unit at 30. Why? Because I can give you at marginal cost plus opportunity cost. Marginal cost is, my own cost is 20, plus there's some opportunity cost as well, 30 minus 20 of 10, that I will foregone by selling internally. So I would charge you that opportunity cost as well. See the concept of arm's length transaction. So I am minimum, I'm going to charge you at 30 in case of full capacity. Okay, because transfer price has to be fair. So it has to be fair. When I'm transferring internally, I shouldn't be at some disadvantage. I should earn from you the contribution I will foregone by not selling externally but meeting your internal demand. So minimum I would charge here in case of spare capacity 20, but here I will charge you is 30, and the maximum again is the net marginal revenue. So I will charge you somewhere around 30 to 55. Greater than 30, less than 55. So it would be somewhere in between. Next case is where seller and buyer have external market. Both have external market, right? I could sell externally by 30. So every time 30 minus 20, I'm earning a contribution of 10. If I'm diverting in case of full capacity, definitely I will charge you marginal cost plus opportunity cost. Minimum I will charge you in case of full capacity 20 plus 10 of 30. Yeah, and with spare capacity I can just charge you, because there's no opportunity cost, benefit foregone, I can charge you 20 minimum, seller point of view. And then you'll take account the buyer point of view as well. Buyer is net marginal revenue, but here the buyer also have an external market. So the maximum price is with respect to the buyer, and now it will be lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price. Definitely. Earlier, there was no buying price to compare my maximum transfer price with. Here, the maximum transfer price would be net marginal revenue 55 and external buying price. See, the buying price, now even buyer could get the same component he was getting from A He could get it from external market because here seller can sell externally at 30 as well as buyer can buy from outside at 45. So lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price 50 would be my maximum price in this case. So with spare capacity, minimum is 20, maximum would be, see there is some correction here, maximum would be lower of external buying price, maximum would be 50 in this case as well when there is spare capacity, and when there is no spare capacity, minimum I'll charge you 30 and maximum would be lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price. Why lower? Earlier 55, less than 55 was the rule of maximum he could charge. Even then at 55 he was getting at zero profit. So it was less than 55. Now again, if A will charge me more than 50, definitely I'll go outside. Why would I buy at 55 when I can get it at 50, right? So in that case, the maximum would be, with respect to the buyer's perspective, lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price. So it would be 50. So it would be 30 to 50, 20 to 50, both in case of spare capacity and in case of full capacity. So whenever you're solving the transfer pricing question, there's another thing you need to take into account. Okay, that what if whether, for example, if A has external market as well as B could buy from outside market, yeah, one thing more you need to consider, because when you'll go outside, when you're trading internally, group profit doesn't come into account. But when A, instead of meeting internal demand, sells externally, or when B, instead of getting from A, goes outside, when anything an external transaction is going on, then only group profits will be taken into account. So there are three perspectives you need to look into whenever you are choosing a transfer price. One, group perspective, then seller perspective, that what would be higher and lower for seller, and then for the buyer perspective. First of all, important thing to consider is who is the buyer and who is the seller. And then whether intermediate market exists for both, for seller as well as for buyer. Yeah. And what is the current policy of transfer pricing? Because at times you are required to calculate the group profit, individual profit as well as group profit. It's a very pet question that can come in transfer pricing, where you need to calculate individual profit as well as the group profit statement. Yeah, under current pricing policy. Maybe under current pricing policy says that head office only allows division B to buy from A, means A must has to meet the demand for B, even if it has external market. That is the current policy, and then you calculate the profit accordingly. Then you need to look at what is the proposed policy, yeah, and or what is what is the proposed policy. In that, it may be where head office just does not intervene, and he just want to apply the best transfer pricing rules, and you are required to calculate divisional profits as well as group profits, where group profits are optimized, group profits, or you're taking decision in the best interest of the group as well as in the best interest of the company. So it would be in the form of the arm length transaction, yeah, that you, if they, in case general rule would be there, in case it's spare capacity, I can charge you the minimum equal to marginal cost, but maximum equal to net marginal revenue or external buying price. But in case there's no spare capacity, then definitely I would charge you marginal cost plus lost contribution. Okay. And at times I can deduct any internal saving, because due to internal saving, maybe there won't be any packaging cost, or maybe you save the transportation cost. So less that saving. For example, external was 30, my own cost was 20. So contribution was 10. So marginal cost was 20 plus lost contribution was 10. So I was charging you 30, and then there's some saving as well. 30 minus 5, so I can charge you 25 for that. Yeah, so that would be in case of full capacity. The minimum would be this and maximum with respect to buyer always. Yeah, and it would be lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price, in which, so this would be as if transaction is happening at an arm length transaction and both would be equally happy. When, for example, there's another thing we need to take into account with respect to group perspective, that in case A is selling externally, okay, what is the and B, instead of buying from A, start purchasing from outside. Yeah, for example, I will see in case A is short of capacity and I don't want A to lose any incremental revenue. Yeah, so I will just see what is extra cost B is will be bearing over marginal cost in case he has to buy from external market. External market price, for example, externally the material is available at 30. However, internally he could have got it at 20. So what is extra that he is paying, B is paying is 10, right? Then I will see that in case what is A could have got by selling externally. Yeah. So for example, 50 was the external price and 20 is the variable cost. Yeah. Means he could have got a contribution of 30 by selling externally. Yeah. So both has an impact on the group profits. When I buy from outside, extra B pay is 10. And when A sells outside, and the extra contribution he gets out of it is 30. So what should be the decision in this case? What